Hi, I'm Gene Cornacchia. At St. Peter's University, we believe that all citizens need to understand the importance of higher education and how it affects our lives. That's why we're proud to support the important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by United Airlines, Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, founded by the Jewish community, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, University Hospital, Newark, New Jersey, Wells Fargo, and by ADP, a comprehensive provider of human resources technology and services. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer, and by NJ.com. Small news, big news, true Jersey.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
That's some beautiful dancing, beautiful ballet. Our good friend here is Eduardo Valero, Artistic Director, CEO of Ballet Hispánico. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, thank you.
What were we just checking out?
We were just seeing an excerpt from Línea Recta, which is currently one of our programs, and it is by Anabel Lopez Ochoa.
Beautiful. Describe your organization. Started in 1970, if I'm not mistaken.
1970, started by Tina Ramirez, who wanted to give voice to the Latino community. She formed a small group of dancers who were untrained. She trained them. She was a flamenco artist, so our roots are in flamenco. She trained them, and they became so proficient, it became a company. But at the same time, it became a school. So Ballet Hispánico, its heart is dance, its backbone is education.
Who are the students?
The students are from all around the city. When we started up in the Upper West Side, they were mainly Latino students. You know, it was a different time in 1970 up in the Upper West Side. But now we have students from all over the city and in our summer programs all over the world.
How'd you get into this?
It's funny.
I always like to ask, what's your story? But I know it's a complicated question. What's your story? How'd you get into this?
I'm an immigrant. I came with my family from Cuba in 1969. And the only thing that connected me to my heritage was music, and the music that was heard at home. And there's a lot of dance in Cuba, and where there's a song, there's a dance. That's the Latino culture. And so that connected me, but it wasn't until 8th grade I did a production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I was Linus. I had a dance. I had to make up the dance, and there I was on stage, and I was hooked.
Hooked? What hooked you?
I loved the communication. That sense that I was telling a story and I was being appreciated and I was being accepted. And for an immigrant kid, that's a lot.
As I'm thinking about this, you and I were talking right before we got onto the air about two things. One, how hard you have to work raising money with a not-for-profit like us here in public broadcasting, like you. How much of your time do you spend outside of the art? This is our art. Your art clearly speaks for itself. How much time do you spend on the business side raising money?
Right now, because I wear both hats, I spend about 60% of the time in administrative tasks. A lot of it is raising money. Yeah. I have the luxury of being the voice of the art. And so the connection that I can bring to any of these fundraising efforts is really valuable.
How important is it being, quote unquote, out in the community and being connected to the community? Talk about that.
Oh my God, I think it's the most important.
Describe what it means.
For me, connecting to the community, it means that we're serving the community. So we serve the community with a school of dance, over 800 kids. 40% of them are on scholarship, so we do a lot of fundraising. So these kids who could not see themselves in Typical ballet schools can see themselves in dance at Ballet Hispánico. We have community programs throughout the city. We're in 20 public schools with specific tailor-made residency workshops which share culture and dance. And then when we tour, we're throughout the nation, we have community programs.
Let me ask you this. The other thing we were talking about before we got on the air was, I feel like every interview that we're doing, in one way or another, we can talk about the divide, the polarization in our country, the difficulty coming together. Not just, forget about accepting each other, how about just acknowledging that each person, regardless of where they are from, who came to this wonderful country, is welcome and for their diversity. What is the potential, long-winded question I know, what is the potential for dance, if not bringing people together, at least getting us talking?
Well, I can't agree with you more. And art is a reflection of culture. And if you have a reflection where you can see each other, where you can see the culture, where you can understand it a little bit more, because right now we're at face value. I don't like the way you look. I'm done. I've made a decision. That's where I'm going. It's a really difficult time with that. And that's because that's what we're being fed. And the thing about the arts, and specifically dance, it is another language. It is another way of being. So you walk into a space where the communication has altered the way you look at each other. And then the image building, you find such universal truths and the human condition that it starts a dialogue, and you start realizing, hey, maybe I don't know everything about this culture.
Bringing dance, excuse me, even into younger kids into schools, how do you do that?
We do that through...
Do you actually get into the schools?
We go into the schools. We work with principals. We have teaching artists who go into the schools. We tailor-make a residency. Some kids in kindergarten learn about the conga from Cuba, or from bomba from Puerto Rico, or flamenco, because that's our heritage. And they intersect with some of the curriculum that they have in the school, and that's why they bring us in. It is a support. It is another way, if they're talking about culture, for the kids to find themselves and learn about that culture.
Were you born to dance?
I was born to dance. I was born to dance. It was something that I had from instinctually from hearing our music, and then it's just something that I keep wanting to do. But most of all, what I love is that this organization, Ballet Hispánico, is exactly the way I am. It wants to share. It wants to bring you the passion and love and understanding of a culture.
Before I let you out of here, let's tell folks, where are you based again?
We're based on the Upper West Side on 89th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam.
But you're on the move a lot.
We are. Our company is on tour nationally and internationally, at least 20 weeks a year. We perform at the Apollo Theater in the fall and at the Joyce Theater in the spring. We're on the move, and that's why I like to say Ballet Hispánico right now, for who we are as America, we're
That's
a movement.
Right. And you are, in fact, internationally recognized.
That's correct.
Eduardo, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You have an open invitation here in public broadcasting.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You got all the best. This is One on One. We're at the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of Lincoln Center. You can see it's at the end of 2018, and we're doing this. You can feel the holiday spirit, but even if you see it after, the spirit's still right here in New York City, and your organization is part of what brings it.
Thank you.
To that very special place. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to welcome Sam Brinton, who is Head of Advocacy and Government Affairs, the Trevor Project. Good to see you, Sam.
Thank you for having me.
Describe the Trevor Project.
The Trevor Project. So we are the world's largest suicide prevention and crisis intervention program for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning youth, so commonly called LGBTQ youth. We operate a lifeline that operates 24/7 so that when youth are in crisis or feeling alone, they can have someone to talk to.
How'd you get into this?
I am a nuclear physicist by training, went to MIT, did nuclear physics, was disarming nuclear bombs for a living, and by night I worked as an advocate for LGBTQ youth. I was trying to stop the horrible practice of conversion therapy, which I'd been through as a youth. And I got the call from Trevor, hey, wanna switch it up? And I did. I got to move over and get to work on LGBTQ issues full time, which is the dream. Getting to come into an organization that I called as a kid and actually save more lives is just truly wonderful.
You know, the term conversion therapy is thrown around a lot.
It is.
Boy Erase gets a lot of attention. We're doing this at the end of 2018, and it'll be seen after that.
Yeah.
Describe for folks who may not understand what it means.
Yeah, so conversion therapy can cover a lot of different things.
Describe your experience.
Sure. My experience got into what is called aversion therapy. So aversion therapy tries to make you have a negative feeling or a negative reaction to an image or a thought so that you won't do that again. So kind of like, remember when people were trying to quit smoking, they would snap rubber bands on their wrist, and that little bit of pain would be like, oh, don't want to smoke. Mine was that, but just a million times worse. I was tied to a table with ice placed on my hands while images of men holding hands would be shown. Then wires were wrapped around my hands and the heat would be turned on when images of men touching men were shown, and turned off when images of men touching women were shown. And finally, it moved all the way up in through electroshock. So pornography played while I was shocked with electricity, trying to turn me into a straight person.
You couldn't get out.
I couldn't. I was an 11-year-old child. There's so many memories of screaming for my parents to make it stop. But in actuality, they were doing what they were doing because they loved me so much that they thought they were saving their child. The government, a nation had told them that this was a viable option to save their child. And we know it's not. Every major medical organization has said this is not appropriate, this is harming children. We've now, in the last few years, stopped 14 states from even allowing it to be practiced on minors, but that means 36 states still do allow it.
36 states still practice legally conversion therapy.
Yes.
So what's the campaign? All 50 states trying to do what?
Every state. So 50 bills, 50 states was the idea.
50 bills, 50 states. By the way, let's make sure we put up the website so people can find out more about the Trevor Project. Go ahead, Sam, sorry.
Exactly. So 50 bills, 50 states is this idea that the kid in Kansas matters just as much as the kid in New York. And both New York and Kansas do not have these protections for LGBTQ youth. That's the work we're having to do, making sure that the legislation is submitted in every single state, or the conversation is started in every single state, so that a parent has to decide to put their child into conversion therapy when the state is making it up for debate. That's my whole point. Let's make sure that the nation recognizes that this is still happening, and we have a lot to do to make it stop.
You know, Sam, as I'm thinking about this, there are parents watching us in the tri-state area and beyond, checking us out, digital platforms, et cetera, et cetera. What is your message? What message would you want to deliver to parents right now who, quote unquote, love their child in the same way your parents loved you and want to do the right thing for their child as it relates to conversion therapy? What would be the message you want to send to them right now?
Parents love their children and want them to grow up to be healthy and happy. Conversion therapy destroys that possibility. These psychological and emotional scars that I have from conversion therapy have devastated my work, devastated my life. And so I would want a parent to know, you do not have to agree with everything that your child says. That's not a requirement. But you do have to understand that your child is beautiful just the way they are, and that this is a natural part of their lives. That's, I think, the biggest part. We know that doctors are saying this is natural. We know doctors are saying that this isn't working, and all we're doing is harming. Why would we put that risk on children?
And the effects, long-term, potentially lifetime.
They are. To be quite frank, every single time that when I shake your hand, I get a little bit of a prick of the electricity still, because my brain was so young that it associates that touch. I'm getting married next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But within the first few kisses, I was puking. The pain was so bad. That's going to hold with me for a really long time. And that's okay. I think it's just going to take time.
Are more and more U.S. corporations, we happen to know that our friends at United told us about you.
Yeah.
Are more and more corporations, I don't want to say being sensitive, I don't know what that means, just getting it? understanding?
They are. They are. I'm so astounded by organizations like United and others who not only give financial support to make sure that we can continue our life-saving work at Trevor Project.
They support the Trevor Project.
They support the Trevor Project.
Right.
And let's be clear, the Trevor Project is serving between 70 and 100,000 youth every year. We're at the highest rates we've ever seen. And so we have organizations who are financially supporting that, but also supporting us with their time. They're volunteering. Organizations like United are saying we not only will put our money where our mouth is, we'll put our time where our mouth is. And that's really important to me, that we need volunteers. We can't do this alone. We need help.
Speaking of help, what role could and should we in the media play, not just in public broadcasting, but in the media?
Yeah.
Mainstream media, whatever the heck that means, to be supportive and helpful.
We need to have conversations about the difficult topics like suicide. We don't. 47,000 individuals just died of suicide in 2017. It's the highest rate that, again, it's ever been. We're not having a conversation because I think the media is worried that if we talk about suicide, it will put the idea in people's minds.
And you say?
It's not. It's not true. If you tell
Talking
someone
about it does not
make it happen. Don't give us the gory details of exactly how it plays out, but talk about the need to talk to someone, that you're never alone. The ideas that we spread have to be one of hope and resilience. We're working with everyone. We're getting calls at the Trevor Project from 7- and 8-year-olds, right? So I'm going to keep working to make sure that they know that they're not alone. And I think the media can help them understand that there's always someone to call. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There's the Trevor Project. There's a variety of services that can always happen. We do digital. You don't ever, as a millennial, I can't stand talking on the phone. And so we can text and chat. We can text and chat so that way you never have to listen to a voice. You can just be served where you are, how you are.
Well, Sam, you just helped a lot of people.
Thank you.
Right now. And hopefully we not just provided this platform, but we'll continue to do that. But thank you, Sam.
I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. All the best.
Thank you.
This is One on One. I'm Steve Adubato. This is our friend Sam. I'm sure we'll be back again. See you right after this.
To watch more One on One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to welcome Kerry Brody, who is founder and executive director of an organization called Emma's Torch. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Our pleasure. How would you describe Emma's Torch?
So Emma's Torch is a nonprofit restaurant. We provide culinary training and job placement services to refugees. Really what we're about is empowering refugees to begin their own culinary careers upon graduating from our program.
Where'd you get this idea and when?
I used to work in public policy, which is a wonderful place to be working, but I'm a very impatient person. And so I found that what was meaningful for me wasn't the policy work, but were those times where I was volunteering at a local homeless shelter on my way to work and had the opportunity to talk to people about food, about their memories surrounding food, and just kind of had this idea that we could be doing more within food to really drive social change. And so I had this idea for quite a while, and I thought someone else should do it. And eventually my husband, I guess, got sick of hearing me complain about it and said, you know, why not you? The rest is history.
Was your husband involved and pushed you?
He did push me. He's always been very encouraging and supportive.
So here's the thing. I'm curious, as I was reading about the organization, I'm thinking, how exactly does this work? How does it work?
So the way it works is that our culinary students come into our program.
Based in Brooklyn.
Based in Brooklyn. We're in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn right now, and our students join us. They begin on day one learning those basics, the fundamentals.
Looking at photos while you're talking about, so go ahead.
Great. Perfect. Oh, there they are.
Go ahead.
Our students start with us. They come on day one really excited, and they're learning those basics. How do you chop an onion? How do you hold a knife?
They don't know anything?
Nothing from a commercial kitchen standpoint.
Okay.
We're really looking for people who are passionate about food, but don't necessarily have the experience of working in a restaurant.
Okay.
And when they come in, everything that they touch, everything that they work on ends up on our menu. So in many ways, when our guests come in at the end of the day, they're eating our students' homework, and it just so happens to be totally delicious.
Do they know that?
They do. We make sure that our guests know what the experience is about, because what we're offering people is the chance to say, hey, that mimosa, that avocado toast, you're changing a life. Don't you feel good about it? You know, order another mimosa.
So it does, but that's not, it sounds like a cliche, changing someone's life, but it's not a cliche. Describe the lives being changed.
We work with refugees, asylees, and survivors of human trafficking. Every student of ours has a different journey.
Describe that. I'm sorry. You go through that quickly, and people, refugees, people seeking asylum, and
survivors of human trafficking. And so if you're looking at these three categories, refugees, I think, are the ones that people most understand, people fleeing large-scale conflict. Then we look at asylum seekers. Those are people, maybe they're fleeing because they're LGBT, maybe they're fleeing because of political unrest where they've been targeted, or that they're victims of domestic abuse. And then finally, survivors of human trafficking are being brought here largely against their will and being forced into slavery. And that's a sad reality of New York City. And so what we're saying is that all of these people have something to offer, have something that they can contribute to our community and to our culture, and that we owe it to them to give them that opportunity to begin new lives and new careers.
How do you find them?
We work with a number of refugee resettlement agencies and homeless shelters who refer in their clients to our program.
I'm curious about this. It would seem to me that the people you're talking about, dealing with the kinds of challenges they've been dealing with, the crises, the personal human crises, that the question of trust, the ability to trust someone to be helpful and truly to be helpful may not be easy for some of these folks. Am I making too much of that?
No, I think what I've really had to realize is that every student who walks through our doors has been through something different, comes with different lived experiences. One of my favorite conversations during an onboarding of one of our students, they kept asking, so why do you do this? What do you get out of this? And I had to tell them
what is it?
And I said to them very bluntly, I get to spend time with you. I get to learn your recipes from home, and I get to see you thrive. And eventually, I'm going to ask you for a reservation at your fancy restaurant, so don't forget me. But I think what we all get out of this is we get to live in a more vibrant community with more delicious food and more diversity. And I don't think of it as a charity. I think about it as something that our whole community benefits from.
Do you consider yourself a political person?
Personally, yes, but I run a 501c3, which
Join
is
the
a
club.
non-political organization.
Yeah.
But I used to work in politics before beginning this.
Yes, the reason I'm saying that is because, see, I don't know, and I'm not going to get into too deep a philosophical conversation. We run a 501c3, as is public broadcasting, right? So our views, we have to temper our views so as to not hurt our organization. That being said, I wonder if it's truly political, meaning controversial political, to take the position that as a country we have a responsibility to be open, to be welcoming, to be supportive of those who are suffering, who may have come from another place, refugees, those seeking asylum, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't seem overly controversial to me, does it to you?
No, and we actually made the decision, we're named after Emma Lazarus, whose poem's on the Statue of Liberty. And the reason for that
Could you remind folks what may be there? Not maybe there, is there. Go ahead.
The words on
right?
Emma's torch say, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. And those words on that poem are still aspirational for our country. And the backstory of that poem is that it was written to raise money for the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. And it helped inspire this entire country. It inspired children to send their milk money. It inspired schools to have drives. It inspired everyday people to say, yes, that's that poem. That's what we stand for. That's what encapsulates being American. So I think in some ways it's the least controversial thing. We are at our best, at our strongest when we live up to those ideals. And that doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on.
You worry about where we are now in terms of certain people of influence and their quote-unquote attitude and position toward the folks you're talking about?
Definitely. I think something that's been interesting to observe is we're definitely watching what's happening at the national level. But every time there's something in the news that maybe runs contrary to our beliefs, that we are our strongest, we are at our greatest when we welcome in the stranger, we have more people knocking on our door asking, how can I help? What can I do? How can we do better? And I think that's something really inspiring. It's easy to watch the news and to feel downtrodden by the xenophobic.
Hey, what do I do?
You uplift people by...
No. So someone says, hey, what can I do? I can't do anything. This is a terrible situation. You say?
You can. You can choose to only be a patron of places that are welcoming and providing equitable pay to immigrants and refugees. You can donate to organizations doing work that supports refugees. And you can call and write letters to your politicians and say, hey, I'm your constituent, and I believe that we have a place here for people.
30 seconds left. You got a story of a student who's done something that you say, hey, this is why I got into this in the first place?
Definitely. I think each of our students presents a beautiful story. We had a student who came to our program constantly apologizing for their level of English, very unconfident. She graduated, and she was not only able to secure a job, she was able to secure a raise and move her family out of the shelter system. And I'm so proud of her and love eating where she works and seeing her thrive.
You're doing important work, and
Thank
people
you.
don't need me to tell them that. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Done.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by United Airlines, Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, New Jersey Sharing Network, University Hospital, Newark, New Jersey, Wells Fargo, and by ADP. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
We are St. Peter's University, a place where students who are eager to learn are taught by people who care, on a campus designed for both to thrive. We're proud to offer incredible learning opportunities and life-changing experiences, and that means our students are prepared to succeed in their fields, in their communities, and all over the world. Get to know St. Peter's University, the Jesuit University of New Jersey.